looking at typographic art. And I mean, you can look this up all over the place. Typography is a huge part of graphic design, and there's so many cool things you can do with text, and especially if you use text as your sort of graphic design element in whatever it is that you're trying to create. So I've just looked up typographic art and pulled up some examples here, and Mr. Trump, his face comes up, and talk about a fitting image today on the presidential American elections today. Anyways, so today we're going to look at how to work with text in an interesting way. And I'm trying to sort of get you guys to break out of that mindset that text needs to be left to right and boring. Using text creatively is going to go a long ways to making your designs look so much better. All right, so we're going to start by opening up the starting point file. And inside there, it's an Illustrator file. You're going to see the outline of Canada. And there are 3 layers. So if we go to Window Layers, make sure your layers are showing. You'll see that there's the map, there's a shadow, and there's a background. And we're going to need each one later on, but we're going to just lock these 3 just by clicking and locking those 3 layers for now. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new layer. So we're going to go to the bottom of that Layers palette. We're going to create a new layer, and we're going to actually focus in on the center of Canada here on Manitoba. And this is where we're going to start. All right, now rather than just making sort of the typical map that you would see basically anywhere, we are going to use the letters of the province in this case to create the province. And I'll show you what I mean. First of all, we're going to go to Window, Swatches. And you're going to see that I've already created a swatch library here for this particular design. And we're going to go to our text tool, and with our text tool sort of over top, we're going to click, and in capital letters we're going to type the name of the province. In this case it's Manitoba. You notice that on mine it comes in sort of pink, and what that tells me is that the font is missing. So I'm going to go to Window, Type, Character, and as you can see it is missing. It's got a little diamond next to it, and so we're going to just look for we'll look for Myriad Bold. In this case, we'll just go with a really basic sort of font for this. It should look fine. So there's Myriad Bold. All right. Now for this first one, what we're going to do is we're going to fill it with this goldish color. Okay, so you see those 2 swatches there. We're going to fill it with the gold color. All right, so our letters are all filled with that sort of golden orange. Now, in order for us to create sort of a interesting effect with our text, right now, if we were to go to View Outline, you would see that the text is actually filled in solid, and the rest of it is all actual vector lines. The reason for that is when Illustrator brings in text, it is still vector, and we know that because we can make text as big or as small as we want, but it sees it as the actual letters rather than the vector shapes. And so if we want text to become the vector shapes that it was originally, what we have to do is click the text, go to the Type menu, and create outlines. What that will do is now if we go to View Outline, we'll see that the text has actually been turned back into the vector lines that it was used to create the font face. All right, so now we have the actual shapes. We're going to go Object, Ungroup, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take about half of this word, so Toba, I'm going to move it down here, and I'm going to take the first half, Manny, and I'm going to put it up here. Now, in Illustrator, there are so many useful tools that we can use to create all sorts of wonderful effects. And one of them that I feel is kind of overlooked is the free transform tool. All right, so I'm going to just find it here. I'll just go into my tools and find it. The free transform tool, probably, like I said, underutilized, but a really, really excellent tool. Allows you to do a lot with whatever object you have selected. So the shortcut is E, All right, and I'll just pull it over into my tool so it's there. But you'll see now that I've got the free transform tool selected. All right, and it's right there. Like I said, you can press E and you can get to it quickly that way as well. Now, the way the free transform tool works is if I start dragging from a corner, it will act a lot like how you would transform something regularly. You'll kind of get this crazy looking cursor. That's the rotation cursor. And you'll also get sort of the standard, scaling and moving and all that that sort of tool. But where it really shines is if you start moving a corner like this. If I start moving the corner and then while I'm moving it like this, I hold the Command key. Now what I can do is I can pull just that one point out and I can get some depth on whatever it is that I'm trying to pull out. So I'm going to do that to that one. I'm going to do that to this one. And I'm actually purposely going to kind of stretch this text to have it sort of fit in the province in this case. Now you'll notice I can only get so far. And then what I need to do is I need to kind of click off of it. Okay, you'll notice that it is grouped. So I'm going to go to Object Ungroup. And I'm now going to transform each letter manually using free transform. Okay, so I'm basically going to each letter and I am manually scaling each letter in this case to fit to the actual outline or the shape of the province. And now the point here is not to make it completely super crazy or anything. And normally we would say don't stretch your text. But in this case, we're going for an effect. This case, we are purposely distorting it. And the goal here is to show you guys that even when you distort text in a crazy way, in this case, it actually has a reason because we're filling the province with the characters. But even if you do that, your text will still be legible. All right, so there's Manny. And now maybe I'm going to take Toba. And I'm going to rotate it something like this. And again, normally this would be a big no-no. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom part of the province and I'm actually going to stretch it to fill the bottom part of the province. Okay, so there's Manitoba. All right, and you can see how that fits. All right, so using the free transform will give you that sort of ability to distort your objects, whatever they are, into kind of these crazy sort of custom transformations that you can do a lot with. And it works great with text, but you can also do it with anything that you have in Illustrator as long as it's in outlines. It won't work on straight text. All right, next we're going to do Saskatchewan. All right, so I'm going to type Saskatchewan. If you're not sure how to spell that, S-A-S-K-A-T-C-H-E-W-A-N. And for this one, we're going to set the color to that lighter yellow. Okay, Saskatchewan. Same thing, scale it up a bit. I'm going to create outlines. I'm going to ungroup it. And I'm going to take maybe half of it. See here, take maybe half of this. I'll maybe get that for something later on down there. Maybe I'll take the, take the Sask part. And right. I will probably rotate that. We'll try that. See how that looks. We're going to move it over. All right. And I'm just going to get it to approximately the width of the province itself. And then I'm going to switch to my free transform. I'm going to grab these bottom points and stretch out the bottom of the text so it looks like it's kind of coming towards us. All right, so there's Sask. And then we got at, and again, there is no rules here. So if you're following along and you're doing this, I'm going to say be creative with it and see what you guys can do. All right, see what kind of creative text that you can make with your letters. So I'm really distorting it here. And I'm going to take the word chew, and I'm actually going to put chew going the other way. We'll see what that looks like. Kind of loses its legibility if I turn it that way. So maybe I'll go this way instead. All right. Okay, so what you're hopefully getting from this is that there is no real rules to this. I can take my text and distort it, in this case, to whatever I think looks good. And in this case, like I said, I'm just trying to fill the text to the sort of the same shape as the province itself. All right, now it's very important that you, in order to get this to work properly for the free transform, that you actually have to start transforming the text first. Right? You have to start transforming it before using the free transform. You have to actually start clicking and then hold the command key after, and that'll allow you to distort it. All right, so there's Saskatchewan. Pretty quick, pretty easy, and it looks cool. Now we're going to do Ontario. We're only going to do these three for this tutorial. So we're going to go type tool once again, Ontario. And for this one, same thing, the bright yellow, type, create outlines, object ungroup, and we're going to just sort of scale it up, and we'll take bits and pieces of it, and we're going to fill that in to wherever on this province that we want it to go, as long as the end result is the text kind of looks like it fills the shape of the province somewhat. All right, and like I said, there's no rules to this, so whatever looks good to you is fine. All right, so there's Ont. Oops, kind of want to shrink that a little bit. Aereo. I think I'll put the O down here because I've got some space for it down there. Might even stretch it a little to fit there. And ARI. Maybe, this might be crazy. I don't know if I like that. That makes it way too big. So maybe I'll figure something else out there. Maybe I'll bring it back a bit. Make the O maybe like this instead. So that kind of fills it in a little bit. Now, Ontario is kind of a weird shape. It's got this little finger that goes down. So I'm going to leave that because that would be really tough for me to fill in. All right, but don't be afraid to, like I said, move the text around and get it sort of in a really custom position. And even at different sizes, it's fine. As long as it's sort of in a legible format, in some sort of an order that your eyes can follow, it will still make sense. Okay, so there we go. We got those three in. I'm going to press Command 0, and you can see kind of how that looks. Now, I already did all the other provinces. Okay, so the other provinces are already finished. So all we have to do is copy and paste. So if I move Illustrator out of the way and I go to provinces, you'll see I've already got all the rest of them done here. So I'm going to just go Command A, select them all, edit copy, or Command C. Then I go back to here, Command V, and I'm just going to move them into position to get them lined up with their respective provinces. And I'm just using the arrow keys on my keyboard to kind of bump it into place. But now you can see the entire map is filled out, and it looks great. All right, and this is what I'm trying to say is that, you know, using creative typography in this case really, really makes a neat effect. Now, to finish this thing off, we're going to lock this layer. Okay, we got all those provinces on that layer. And we're going to go to our background layer. I'm going to actually unlock the background. Okay. And on the background layer, I'm going to take the rectangle tool, and I'm going to fill it with this brown right here, the second brown in my swatches. And with the rectangle tool, I'm actually going to draw a rectangle that kind of fills up the entire background. Something like that. Okay, so I just dragged and dropped a rectangle to fill the entire canvas with that color. All right, so it fills in like that nicely. And then I'm going to actually lock that layer. Now, one thing we can do to this to make it look a little more grungy and sort of a little more worn, maybe a little more authentic and sort of heritage, is we can add a new layer to the top. And actually, I'm going to get in the habit of naming my layers. So layer 4 is going to become provinces. Layer 5 is going to become scratchy. Okay? And what I can do here is I can go to File, Place, and in the tutorial folder, you will see an image called Scratchy. Basically what this scratchy image is it's this sort of grungy image that I found. And it's huge. I didn't realize it was so huge. So we're going to scale it down. I'm going to hold Shift and Option so that it scales from the center. Shift Option until I get it down to sort of a manageable size. Man, I didn't realize this thing was so huge. All right, we're getting there. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to take this picture and we're going to stretch it to cover our canvas, like that. All right, now I think traditionally a lot of people think that vector artwork always looks clean, and it's just the way vector artwork is, but you can do a lot of tricks to make it look more worn and sort of less perfect. And this is one of those tricks. We're putting the scratchy layer on top. We're going to go to Window, Transparency. And in your transparency window, you will see where it says normal, you can change the blending mode. So if we try different blending modes, okay, I'm going to try until I find one that I like. We are able to create a much rougher looking version of our artwork. I like Multiply actually. Yeah, I think Multiply is kind of cool. So I'll go with Multiply. Okay, that definitely makes the artwork look more scratchy. We can also pull the opacity down if we think that it's making it a little too dark. You can do that too. And to finish this thing off, the very last thing we're going to do, we're going to lock that layer. We're going to make a new layer. We're going to open up the file called Canada Leaf. And in there you will find a Canada Leaf. We're going to copy it, Command C. We're going to bring it over here. We're going to press Command V to paste it. Put it down in the corner like this. And then using the text tool, just like this, we're going to set the text to white in our swatches, and we're going to type Know Your Roots. All right, so imagine this is a poster, you know, in a mall or something. It would be really cool, and it's a really creative use of typography in my opinion. It looks really nice. All right, it's just a different way of using text. And like I said, don't be afraid to experiment with your text. Don't be afraid to make your text do things that you wouldn't normally do. One of the things I always try to talk people out of is just using text the way that text is supposed to be used, left to right and boring. All right, feel free to experiment. And when you experiment with your text, when you experiment with your typography, your designs are going to have a much more custom and interesting look compared to other people's designs. All right, so make sure you save that. If you got through that, awesome. Hopefully you can use some of these techniques on your own designs. Till next time, thanks for watching.